begin recording. We are 105. If people start adding, coming in, I will admit them so that they can have access. All right, I'm monitoring the chat as well, so if you guys would rather stay muted, please feel free to ask questions. I will bring it up for Casey. So pretty much I am Casey's wing woman today. I'm going to kind of help monitor everything and get everybody added where they need to. A few housekeeping tips. If you need to mute yourself, and if this is the first time that you're using Zoom, please raise your hand. We could definitely help you, but there should be a little mic right beside. It's multiple places throughout wherever you're looking on your screen. And if you would rather stay muted, you can also click your space bar and hold it in as you talk. And when you're done talking, you can lift your finger up off the space bar and it will mute you again. My name's Alex. I'm the director of the Burke County Public Libraries. I have Casey Griffith today, a library clerk from the Philippi Public Library. This pretty much just began as a small thing that Casey was going to do for me and my right hand, Kim, because we really wanted to get involved with escape rooms, and especially with summer reading having to be completely redone for most public libraries this year. We're trying to move as virtual as we can. So I'm going to bring this down. Some of the links that you see here will be shared in the chat bar in a little bit. I'm going to bring over another, sorry, I'm working off two screens, guys. There we go. Alrighty, so a few quick things. There's going to be a link that I'm sharing. Casey and I was talking about it. There's a lot of different people that were joining in today. They are just not West Virginia Library employees. We do have some teachers from West Virginia, and we also actually have a few teachers from PA. So some of our normal Facebook channels wouldn't be things that everybody would be in on. If you guys would like us to consider making a Facebook page or Discord page, something of that nature to keep us all contacted afterwards, I'm going to send you this link. Just drop your name and your email. And then when we do, if we get enough response, then we'll kind of go from there. I think the whole goal to have a Facebook chat room or a Discord chat room would just be so that, you know, we could be like, hey, can somebody test drive this? You know, we just finished this, or hey, here's something for you guys to add or use yourself. So let me know what you guys think. I'll drop that in the chat room right now. The next one is something that I began as just my own personal notes, and then I realized that it might be something more people want access to, so I prettified it. What it pretty much is a list of all of the digital escape rooms that I have come across or found. A lot of them are all of these first ones are all free. This very first one right here is actually Casey's. This is the one that he's going to be going over with us today. However, there is tons, a lot of them from libraries, but there are a couple school district ones on here from some of the school media specialists. If you scroll down a little bit more, I'm gonna show you guys a few other things that I found. Some of the other libraries already did what I was starting to do. They compiled their own lists. So you might see some duplicates, or you might find complete new ones on either list of them. There's something that's awesome with the Campbell County Public Library. They actually shared their FAQ guide and answer keys. And then there's also another site called Hourglass Adventures. This one actually does a lot of different ones and compiles ones that are also fee-based. So some of them might not be directly things that we need, but maybe your patrons ask you, well, they want something that they could, you know, specifically pay for. That might be able to take you to further information. There is only one that I found right now where you can pretty much turn it around and make it your own. This Greek mythology one from Brooks Free Library. And then I do know that the Teachers Pay Teachers site does have a few things on there that you can purchase to be able to make your own Google Form escape rooms. And then there's just a few how-tos on there. So let me share this one with you guys right now and get the link. And then the last thing is he's going to go over this, so I'm not going to show this to you too much, but I am going to now pretty much turn over. Let me stop the share. And Casey, you are able to take over it now.
All right, let's see. That's the one. Nope, wrong screen.
I'm seeing your Google Docs one, the one that you had on earlier.
Yeah, I had another screen behind it that I didn't want up.
Okay,
That
no worries.
I was like, I'm going to close that so it doesn't interfere. All right. So how many people are familiar with using Google Docs or Google Forms in any way? All right. So if you're familiar with Google Docs and Google Forms, then it's a little bit easier for you to understand what you'll need to be able to do. So the first thing you do is you go to the Docs page, and then you'll click the 3 lines right here where it says Main Menu. And then you go to Forms. And of course, you can see that I have my 2 forms there, or you can do a blank one, which I'm going to click. And then this is the first thing that'll pop up. This is where you'll start designing everything you want to do. Now, before you get to this point, the big thing that you need to do is you need to decide what you want to do, how you want to do it, and how you want it laid out. Because when you start throwing stuff in here into the Google form, it gets complicated quick if you do not know what you're doing. When I started my Praxium, a Star Wars story, the basic idea was there's a lightsaber cosplay group that is local around here called the Outer Rim Praxium Lightsaber School. And they were supposed to come from May 4th to the library and do a Jedi Academy with the kids. But since we had to close everything down, they couldn't do that. So I was like, aha, we can make a digital adventure that they can do. So we built this. Now, some of this stuff I just threw in last minute. Some stuff was there from the very beginning. But it took us almost a month to build this entire thing. So depending on how in depth you want to go, it's time consuming. So you can see here, I have a little planet thing, and then you put in the title and everything. These are images that I made. You can put in videos as well. Like this one does the opening crawl for Star Wars, but it's customized for this. And I'm going to play it all the way through. And then you click next. And then you'll have the pieces where there'll be parts of the story that you're doing with the images. And then you have the questions. Now, depending on how you want to do it, each of these has a specific section it will go to. So if you click yes, it'll go to one thing. You click no, it goes to something else. And if you guys want to, you can get on there and you can play with this. I'm not going to focus on this side of it too much because really what you need to learn is this part.
Casey, I'll share the link for yours in the thing too, so if they want to play around as you're going over things.
Yeah, if you guys want to play around while I'm talking, please go ahead and do so. If you have questions, that's great. So as you can see on this one, it starts with untitled form, and then you have untitled question. On this one, yeah, you start putting in stuff piece by piece. And the good thing about a Google document like this with a Google form is everything is in one long section. Now, it can also be a bad thing because it will take you a while to go through. You can see how much stuff I have in here to go through. And now each question goes to a different section. So if you're not careful, you can mess it up really, really quickly. So I'll just show you a little bit of how to build a simple one. Let's say interesting Zoom meeting. Now here is where you can change what you're doing. Like you can put your question in, you can have multiple choice, check boxes drop down. So if you're familiar with Google Forms, you know how to do all this. So you can put in and then you can go down here and it says go to section based on answer. And then you can add a new section that says left. And then you set that one to left, and you can create the next one. Right. You set that one to right. And then if you preview it, go to left, it takes you to the left section. If you go to right, it'll take you to the right section. You hit a click. So that's the basic format of being able to set up one of these. Now with the escape rooms that you usually see, you have to have verification on different things to be able to move forward. I've not actually made a genuine escape room like that yet. So we're going to play with the choices here and see what we get. All right, so for example, you've got the question, do you want to go left or right? And you put in the answers. The answer will be whichever way you want them to go. So let's say you have and of course the answer would be 2. And then if they get it wrong, you'd be like, no, that's wrong. So then preview it again, you'd say submit, and it says it lets you go through. Now if you would mess it up, you go, I think it's 4. And you submit, and it's like, no, that's the wrong answer. So depending on, you can do just about any theme you want with these. Be careful if you're going to do something with copyrighted material. I don't know how deep that goes. The one I did with Star Wars, I used images from all kinds of stuff, but every image has at the very end a credit for where it came from, who's the owner, and all that stuff. So is there any questions so far?
Actually, yeah. What did you click to pull this up where it says like text content? What did you click? I saw you click something down here by those 3 little dots by required. What did you click there?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Response validation.
Yeah,
okay.
It's response validation. That means that they have to give the right answer or it doesn't let you go through. If you don't click that, they can type in whatever answer and it'll let you go through.
And so you can make that where if they do give the right answer, then it'll take them to the next.
It'll take them to the next
part.
section.
Okay.
So
All right.
if you're doing a Star Wars one, you can have any question like, who is Yoda? And then you can say a Jedi Master, and then you would type a Jedi Master right here where it says 2. And then if they get it wrong, you can have a custom message. And then from there, it'll take you to the next section.
And the response validation can only accept one potential text as the correct thing?
Yeah, yes.
So
it will accept whatever you type in this box right here, or this line right here, is the answer. So if they type in TWO, even though that's technically right, it's not going to let you through because you put in the numerical 2 instead of the TWO. So the answers have to be exact when you do response validation.
And with the short answer as the possible response, you can't have multiple branching there. It's either progress or don't progress.
Right. Exactly. And that's the way most of the escape rooms that you see, that's how they'll do it. It's very linear in how you do it. You go from this section to the next section to the next section until the very end. Now, if you do, you can do multiple things. Like you can have this one that goes to the next thing, and then when you do a next section, let's say this is the one that you go to next, you can have another question in there, and then you can have multiple choice or one of these others, like a paragraph answer, and then from the multiple choice you can branch off and have several branching things, but you can't combine like the short answer and multiple question to branch off.
Casey, I think that brings up a good point, and what I saw when I've been doing all my research is that some of the libraries would also have a FAQ or an answer key to help you along, so that if you do get stuck because you keep putting 2 and you're like, no, it's 2, it's TWO, and they're not thinking to do the 2.
Right.
They need that nudge or that help almost to get forward.
Right. And you can always, like, these sections, you can have as much of this stuff as you want in there. You can have 100 images, and you can add, like right here it says add title and description. You can add a hint right here that says think outside the box. Not everything has to do with letters or something, or whatever you're doing, you can add as much stuff in one section as you want so that they can get the answer that you're looking for. Now, if you make it too hard for them to answer the question, they might give up. I tried one that was a Doctor Who one that somebody had shared, and good God, the very beginning, it was like you had to translate Gallifreyan by using a link to show you how to translate it. I couldn't do it. Like, I spent 40 minutes looking at it, trying to figure out what the image said, and then I gave up. So take into consideration the age range that's going to do this. How well will they know the subject matter? Like, if you do a Doctor Who one and you do something that's Gallifreyan being translated up front, you're going to need hardcore fans who want to translate that, and that's the only reason I gave it 40 minutes, because I really like Doctor Who. Casual people who are doing these things, if it takes more than 5 minutes to figure out the answer, you're probably going to lose them, and they're just going to click out and be like, oh well, because this is for fun, and it's no longer fun if it becomes schoolwork. And that's why with my Praxium one, there's no validation questions in it. It's a yes or no question. Like if you say you want to learn the ways of the Force, it goes through, and then it'll talk about the two guys who have the holocrons, and then you can learn about holocrons, or you can know and just be like, I want to start my training and go through. And it's just multiple choices to keep going through. And then one side is the Jedi and one side is the Sith. And they click through, they choose their lightsaber color or the Sith class they want to be. We have videos from the Praxium people to help explain you along and bring you along. There's a graduation video. There's a lightsaber training video, a lightsaber building video. I wanted mine to be very easy to use. What was that?
Sorry, I think it was somebody's feedback.
Okay. I was creeped out. I was like, there's nobody talking and I hear voices. But the biggest thing with one of these is when you start planning one, make sure you have a good plan to go with it. The easiest thing for me when I did this was, let me show you. So I had a Google folder in Drive. You can see I have information on the holocrons that I put together. And then I have the Praxium Adventures. And then I had a Google document that all of us involved with this could type in so that we could type in here and be like, I think we should use this. We should do this. We typed out, this is stuff that we need to add in. You can see. You definitely want to plan this out before you get in there and start throwing stuff around. And then I created this. This was our path layout that shows you started at the beginning and then it'll take you through which section so that we knew when we were doing it what needed to go where. Because like I said, with mine, you can see there's so much stuff and you can easily get lost in it, especially if you make one as long as I did. And each section comes along, but some of these sections, like if you choose a certain thing to go there, if you're not careful, you can see right here, like where it says continue to next section. If you don't choose go to section based on answer, or you mess up and you have it to where it just says go to next section, it'll throw the whole thing off. Because I had several that were going down the Jedi path when I was building this, and I eventually had to create two separate paths for Jedi and Sith because it was supposed to wrap back around to the lightsaber training and building, but it wasn't working because there was just too many variables. So I had to create two separate paths to build through. And you can see it's section 6 of 35. So that's 35 sections you have to keep track of when you're doing this. And if you have more than one person adding stuff in, it can get really confusing fast, especially if you put in a bunch of stuff and then you're like, okay, let's say Alex tells her right hand, she's like, you go ahead and start building the next part. So they go through, and then if they're not communicating with each other, somebody may do stuff that messes up what the person did previously. Any more questions?
It's better to like do it all out on paper first, do you think, Casey? Have it like planned out on paper?
Paper or a Google document or a Word document that you guys share amongst yourselves is definitely better than just starting the form and starting to put stuff in. Like I said, I had this and then we had this so that we could communicate and keep track of what needed where. Because with like 35 sections, that's a lot of stuff.
Right.
So, and this way you can actually make sure that all of your thoughts are out, and you can type out what you need in there beforehand, and then all you got to do is copy and paste it in, and then make sure it goes to the right section.
Thank you.
So has everything I said so far made sense? Everyone's on the same page? All right, sounds good. Well, that is basically the basics of it, being able to put it together. One of the things I would recommend is if you want to see the background of what I did, I can send you the link for this to be able to see the behind the scenes. This one won't mess up the actual story that we did because this is a copy of it. And play around with what I did build, see how it works from the front, and then get on there and play around with it. If you mess up, then you've not done anything too hard. You can go back and redo stuff. Just play around with it and see what you come up with. It's definitely a lot easier, especially if you've used Google Forms before, because you know how to build a basic form for information. This just extends that.
Would you suggest making a copy of it, and so we have the original one always?
I did it simply because the original one isn't going to be just for me. They're going to use it at conventions and whatnot. And I was afraid that if I used it and started playing around with it in the class, I might mess something up.
Right.
And then that's a whole month's worth of work messed up. So if you want to make a copy of it, it's always better to have, so that if you do change things, you can always be like, all right, I don't like any of those changes we made. Then you can jump back on the other one and be like, okay, I like this better, and then build from there. Okay. But it's up to you whether you want to do that or not. I'm an old school gamer who used to play on PlayStation and other stuff. So I would have 100 saves of the same game, because doggone it if I didn't spend 40 hours on something and then the game got corrupted and I couldn't play it anymore, and that was the only save I had. So I'm always of the opinion, the more saves you have, the better off you'll be in the long run.
And you know what? Let me ask here. We do have somebody, Casey, that wants to have that link for just this one that you're working on, just so they can kind of see behind the scenes of your copy one. Okay. But is there anybody who's shaky on Google Forms? Kim and I have done extensive playing around ourselves to get, because we are now using Google Forms for program registration. So we have our staff and our patrons signing up for programs using direct links to certain forms. And then what's awesome is that we have our library's work email that we just made for Gmail connected to both our phones. And at any point in time, we can whip our phone out, go to the Google Drive for the library's account, and see who's signed up. Is there anybody who's shaky on the Google Forms itself, the customization, changing the color schemes? Because that is something that you can do. You can change that background color. You can kind of change the theme a little bit to match more of your photos and things of that nature.
Yeah, and you can add a header photo, like this photo that I have back here of the planet. That was an image that I put there myself for the header to kind of give it a Star Wars feel, but you can put anything there. The way to do that would be click customize theme, and then you can see where it says image uploaded. You would just click the X, and then it will say upload image, and then you can have the theme colors here. You can add a custom color, which means you can play around and mix it. Now, when you upload an image, it'll actually create a bunch of colors that you can choose from that matches the photo that you're using. You can also change the font style. Like you can have it to be decorative, formal, playful, or basic. I kept it basic because I didn't want to get too fanciful with the things. But depending on what you're doing, like if you're doing Cinderella's ball theme or something, decorative might be the way you want to go to give it that little fancy flair or whatever.
Casey
Now that
shared the link for you guys.
Yeah, that link should work. If it does not, let me know.
Now I have a question for you, Casey. Do you want that link just to remain with the people that are on here today? Or do you want that added on to that Google Drive document that I have?
You can add it onto the Google Drive document because this is a copy, so people can go in there and play around with it. You can actually rearrange stuff if you want to. There's this one's for everyone to be able to play around with and see what's going on behind the scenes. Let me make sure. All right, that link should work.
Okay. Let's see if it pops open. Yep, it is loading for me. So I'm adding it right in underneath. Since you're number one on my digital escape rooms list, I'm just adding it as another point just to say behind the scenes look at.
Right. And I do want to show you one thing on this that we did. I told you that we did a credits scene. So I did the credits, which shows who all was involved and gives all of their information. And then this is the photo credits. When you guys go through and start gathering resources to build your theme, escape room, or adventure, every link that you touch, every image you use, make sure you grab the link where it's from and put it in a document, because you're going to want to give credit for all of that stuff, especially if it's something that somebody else made. I didn't use all free stuff for this, but I did make sure that everyone who made something got credit for it in the very end. So that should be sufficient enough to keep you from getting into any kind of like legal problems. I tried to ask permission for a few things. People, a lot of the times, this stuff has sat on the internet for years and no one responds to you. So, but if you give the proper credits for whoever owns it and make it clear that this isn't your stuff, that you don't own it, then you should be fine, especially since it's something free for a library that you're doing. Now, if you try to charge money for doing something like Alex said, there's a couple of those on the sheet that she had that are pay to use. That's a no-go. If you're going to use stuff, make sure it's completely 100% free to use. If you charge any kind of money for it, if you try to do one of these as like a fundraiser or something, you definitely want to make sure you use all free resources. Now, another thing that I thought of really early this morning when I had coffee, which was a bad idea, but you can do more with this than just have a digital adventure. I was thinking about it, and you could actually make not just a virtual escape room, but you could tie it in to making an actual escape room at your library or in your classroom. You can have parts of the adventure where, like, if you have the question, give a Dewey Decimal number for a book, and give clues as to where the answer is, they can go find the book in the library, find the answer, bring it back to the laptop or the computer that you're using, and then do it. So you can actually expand on this idea a lot to be able to do stuff, make it interactive, and use your environment as well.
And Casey, can I ask you a quick question? When you shared those photo credits, the thing that was driving me bonkers is that I saw a few other libraries also shared their credits, but they put it in the very beginning in that, you know, description thing. So it just made it seem very top heavy and bulky. How
Right.
did you do it then? You put it all the way at the end so that when they finished, they saw that information, or?
Yeah, as soon as, let me show you, as soon as you finish the adventure, it will go all the way through, and then it brings you down to your graduation, where this would be for the Jedi, this is for the Sith, and then the very last thing that goes is that right after you do this, you click next and it takes you to the credits, and this is the very last thing that you see before you click submit at the bottom.
Okay.
So that way there's no way that they, unless they click out of it early, but usually when they see the next at the bottom, they go ahead and click it because they think there's more to do. And then that way you have all of the credits there for people to be able to see. I don't like when they do it at the very beginning. That's why I did it like this. There was a couple that I saw, and it just makes it really,
It's
it's
clunky.
first, it's clunky, and it takes you out of the adventure. It makes it like abundantly clear that this is just make-believe. And when you're trying to play make-believe, especially with kids, you want to keep them immersed in it. You don't want to be like, oh, this is where we got all the stuff before they even start. So if you put that at the very end, then they can be like, oh, that's cool. Like I've got the Star Wars intro creator right here. And they might be like, hey, I want to go check that stuff out. But if you put all that at the very beginning, especially with as much stuff as I had to use, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all. And I had information for the Praxium that I had to share. I had the library's information I wanted to share, and then all the photo credits. So you can put all that at the very end and it not interrupt or disrupt your escape room or your adventure.
It looks like you can put it in as a hover text as well.
You can, but the hover text will only let you put in so much on certain things. Like this image here, you can put in hover text for it, but if you have something like this right here where you have a choice, you can't put in hover text for one of the choices.
Yep.
So that's why I decided to do a credits thing at the very end. I tried to use the hover text as much as possible on individual images, but with the choices, you can't do that. So I'm decided to do hover text and a credits at the very end.
And I'll add on, Kim and I were discussing this, especially for those that might be doing summer reading online or classroom management, things of that nature. Let's say this is extra credit. In our new summer reading program platform online, if you give them a certain, like a digit, so if it's like a special code, they can enter it in and then they can get points towards the summer reading that they attended something. So that could be something for educators and librarians alike to sit there and say, did you do this? If they complete it at the end, you say your code is, and you can't get to that code until you complete it. So once they get that code, they could either show it to you for extra credit or, do something different. I mean, you could change the code if you're a teacher every few days so that they're not sitting there trying to share it around. That might be
Right.
as well.
Yeah, so you could do that at the very end and it'll pop up and be like, congratulations, you've finished the adventure, your code is, and then can Read Squared, can you change the code individually per kid?
We
Or
haven't got that far. We just started doing our platform. If I'm not mistaken, the code that you give is unique to that event. So how I understand it, and Kim, yell at me if I'm saying this wrong, because we sat through the same things. When you finish, or when you give, or you put that program, like you itemize, hey, if you attend our virtual story time today, that code is this. That's the same code no matter what.
okay, so yeah, and then you can just change it out every few days so that they're not cheating, because kids will do that, especially if there's a kid who might be lower level, and then they're friends with the kid who's higher level. They'll be like, here, just use my code so that you can do this. Or you'll have kids who will be in the same family, and they'll have one kid do it, but then there'll be 5 kids in the family, and they'll all use that code, and only one of them actually did the work. So we've had problems with that with just regular stuff at our library. So digital stuff.
Do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the nature of people. Sometimes they're going to try to find the easy way in and out. So.
Is there any other questions for Casey? Hopefully this gave you guys a good overview. I mean, it definitely gave us at least an overview of how we could do it and begin doing this.
Yes, and if you guys if questions come up, you can email or message Alex, and she can get them to me, and I can talk to you guys directly or anything. Once you start playing around with it, it gets much easier. I had no idea what I was doing when I started this, and I actually messaged a person who made an escape room and asked a couple questions, and she answered them for me. But by the time she answered me, I'd already built half of this already, and it was already easier than I would have imagined. Just as long as you can keep yourself straight and organized doing it, you should have no problems whatsoever being able to build something. You can go as heavy and deep into it as you want, or you can do like 4 sections and they get the reward. I mean, as far as I know, there's no cap on how many sections you can have in one of these things. Like I said, I went 35 sections, and there was no pop-up that said, oh, you're nearing your quota or whatever. So,
have you found out at all, or through your research, what the typical time frame we should reach for? Like, not one that should take somebody so long for a typical one, not something that's a little bit more in depth?
Most of the ones I did took like 20 minutes to a half hour, depending on how focused you are on it and how much research you have to do into doing it. Most of them are pretty simple and pretty quick. I didn't actually time how long it took to do mine, but mine didn't have any thinking to do. You just had to click a bunch of stuff and go through. I would say 20 minutes, a half hour should be like the top end of what you're doing, because let's face it, kids' attention spans are really low. And especially now, I was kind of disappointed. I spent a long time building this, and then when I released it on May the 4th, I had a total of 1 person do it that day. I've had 10 more do it since then, but they were all adults who wanted to play on it and see what I had built. So I have a feeling that with all the kids being stuck at home in quarantine, having to do work on their laptops, their Chromebooks, their PCs, packages that their schools are sending out, this stuff is starting to grow on or wear on them a little bit. So if you do one of these, make sure it's really engaging, because otherwise they're probably just going to be like, this looks like homework that I've been doing for the last 2 months. And they'll just be like, I ain't doing it.
All right, my last dumb question. Your analytics, where are you getting your data for how many people are accessing your data one?
All right, so that's a very good question. It's something I forgot to explain. You can see right here where it says questions. Click right here where it says responses. Now this one says 0 responses. but as people answer it, it will populate all the information in here for you. Let me show you on the other one. Is that one?
I thought it was going to be in
Nope.
responses, but I didn't know exactly what.
I'll show you on the original one here. So as you can see, it'll say summary, question, individual, and you can export it all out to an Excel spreadsheet. So that makes it easy. If you have, you can collect emails and information, of course, but it'll show you how many people answered what question. So this one, 23 responses, 100% yes. No one chose no. This one was 2 responses no because they ended up messing up and going back and redoing it. And then you just go through it, tells you who chose what. So that's where all the information comes from. And then if you export it as a spreadsheet, you can select an existing spreadsheet if you already have one that people have used and then you're adding new responses to it, or you can create a new one.
So you're pretty much looking at that very first one to see, grant you, it'll be a little bit trickier to figure out how many people finished depending on which route they took, but you're really looking at how many people started it at the very beginning.
Right. Well, if you look here, you can see in the Excel spreadsheet, it starts at the very beginning and then it plots it all the way through to what they chose. And it tells you the percentages in the other part, but it tells you when they did it and what they clicked as they went through. Like this person was like, no, I don't want to learn about holocrons. And then they chose the purple lightsaber for balance and sacrifice and the Jedi martyr. And then it goes on and on for each individual person. It has what they chose.
My brain's thinking of ways that I can make it easier to figure out how many people use it.
The easiest way, honestly, is to look here and just see where it says 23 responses. Now, if you're going to do it multiple times, you can always select delete all responses. Like if you do it one day and you take attendance and say, okay, 15 people did it today, then you can erase it and then have another group do it and count it from there.
Okay.
And that might be another reason to have multiple copies, just so that you can have multiple spreadsheets that say, and when you export it out to a spreadsheet, you can export it out to the same one every time and then have all the responses from every group that you're doing.
But it timestamps all of the responses. So
Yes,
if you had multiple sections, you'd be able to count just by doing a sort with the spreadsheet.
Right. If you want to do it quick and dirty, you can just look at the responses here that are highlighted. But if the spreadsheet will have it by when they did it, it goes down to the very last second of when they did it. So date, time, and each choice that they make.
I'm reading through the comments. I don't see anything additional for you, Casey.
All right. If
For those
no
that
one
might have
has-
joined late, just scroll up and you'll see a couple links that we shared.
Just say if there's any questions that anyone has, hit me with them now.
Alrighty, I'm going to stop recording.